Hello everyone. I would like to talk about today a very interesting idea, and it is the idea of how to work with your abstract vision. And what that really means is that we all have imagination, and we know what that means to us personally. But each person's understanding is one that is fit to them. And what that means is that your necessities and your requirements of what is perfection for you in the moment is personal. So the perfection of your truth is a personal truth. So we have truths that we can share publicly, and we have truths which we cannot share publicly. The concept of a truth has different meanings for different points of attention. For the conscious being, it is one of significance, because the self is thoroughly explored to the degree in which imagination can no longer have borders. Because no nation ever needed to have a border like that, you know. But again, it's all in the process of emergence, in which we see, regardless of our thinking, regardless of our knowing, this is the projection that is occurring. You see, the problem is that once you look at your personal truth and you look at the truth in which is shared by people, you see that they're different objects. The truth in which you adjust yourself to for public reasons, social reasons, or any other reasons are ones in which you appreciate a moment of happening, which is that moment. So everyone's truth was actually how they felt based on what they could see. And so, your sight and your gaze imply different things. Because when you can gaze at something, you have free will to choose a point of attention. You see, that is what is happening. We have acknowledged a point, and that point is connecting to other dots in the sense that the relationship can be even perceived. If you want to even believe that you can find a problem and answer, or in a sense, if you believe you can find an answer to your problem, let's say, you know there is an answer, you know there is a truth, you know there is a presence, regardless of anything else, you just know it. And that is powerful. Because the power found in depth is one of a very abstract human being. In other words, the way you're acknowledging your creativity now is going to be nothing like the way you acknowledge it as consciousness. Because as consciousness, the origin of your creativity is a combination of experiences that are communicating to a very self-conceived and temporal understanding of itself. Once you look at the being as understanding or as communication, you realize it is the quality of communication that is important. So how we are approaching truth is more important than what the truth is, because we have so many different approaches. And so you have the approach of the most corrected and most trusted, let's say, person in your outside world, let's say. But at the end of that, at the end of getting the greatest ideas from somebody else, you will see that you still are among your own ideas. You cannot ignore your past because that is an image that was relevant to you. If you suddenly assume it's irrelevant, well, it can't be. You were involved in that action. And you see, if you try to, from one platform of meaning, try to understand the meanings of all other platforms of existence, all other dimensions, from one dimension, you simply limit yourself to your dimension of understanding by assuming that that's it. So it's a weakness. I wanted a greater fight for truth, not one to just push it away because we can't see it. That is ridiculous. We need to understand that there are ways of seeing which suggest comfort. So the human being, after learning to communicate, learned and began communicating more comfortably, in which now we have many groups and also have developed freedom of speech in our world, in which new ideas can land properly. There was a time that wasn't, especially with Galileo, which he wrote his book, and you know, the religious leaders at that time did not approve of, because who gives man the right to think that he's not the center of his world? You always have access to being the only thing in your world because you're only seeing that, but you can also be other things. You see, compassion is only seems unnecessary in a harsh world when there have been years and years of developed harsh systems. In other words, I'm not tackling a problem now, I'm tackling a problem of humanity. In other words, me picking up a trash that doesn't belong to me outside is handling a problem of humanity. I am going head to head with the greatest beast ever. That of decisions already made before us. That is a beast we in a sense begin to fight later on as self-awareness recognizes its invisible skin. What is precious for you is what you immediately feel comfortable with, but even after that comfort, recognize that there's a sense of direction. What that means is, guys, throughout my life, I wasn't aware of this. Later on, I became aware of it in a context which I can explain now. But the way I was aware of it was that mistakes could be made again. The concept that mistakes could be made again suggests one where your focus point is focusing on many things at the same time. Dissolution means transmutation of the energy that you are into a new viewpoint of perception. The thought of greatness involves one, where we first see a great sense of self, and second, we can see the ability that we do not have, which is present in others, in a new sense of cognition be found within ourselves as well. You must think about life in the terms, if you're a rational person, of your memory. You must understand that there is always a sense of association, whether it's an idea associating with other things, whether it's a name associating with other things, whether it's consciousness associating with other things. Whatever it is, there is a sense of association. In other words, you are dancing. Don't think you've stopped dancing. You're in this whirlpool. You're in this life of not knowing where your attention's going to go, what you're going to do, and how you're going to step into the grave. You see, the concept of rationality and logic is only good as an additional filter for man to utilize when he wants to check the present and the past, when he wants to learn from that. But some presents, in other words, what I mean by that, in other words, some people who are experiencing the present moment do not remain focused constantly for the rest of their life only on their sense of past or that sense. In other words, their consciousness gives them a new format of understanding what is the human being. So my understanding fluctuated, and I realized there was an understanding that I got from books and ancient traditions and different theories and different rationalities and different I guess schools of thought and remembrance. But you see that it's not about that school, because we know that when you're sitting in school, or when you're in a room in school listening to the teacher, you're aware that some part of you is just very bored, because you could be doing that at home. In other words, maybe in 100 years, schools will come to us. you know. Much differently than they're coming to us now. Because education can only be priced, in my opinion, and I'm coming from a very traditional view, that knowledge that can be utilized like a valve or controlled like a valve is not proper knowledge. In other words, you don't want your thirst, you don't want to be extremely thirsty and run to, let's say, somewhere where you can get a glass of water and suddenly someone not letting you use the machine for the water properly. In other words, you see your thirst is the burst of your energy to advance. It's an immediate reminder of how you feel. Your advancement must be one of of a cosmic scale. You see, guys, there was a time where I was really interested in structure, especially when it came to writing, and how that structure would move once new structures were found. In other words, the mind has an unstructured way of looking at itself and a structured way of looking at itself. And not even just looking, working with itself as well. This work is different. When you see that there's differences in the quality of your attention, in your moments, and your memory, you can access more out of your memories. It may perhaps be a bit too soon for me to talk about these ideas, but eventually I will get to, and I have written a lot on it, but I can say that, you see, guys, we are aware of consciousness as an attention that is not formed. But we also notice that being aware of such a story is, on one sense, a story engagement. So you see, guys, for those who are in the city, who have to work tomorrow, or you have school tomorrow, to be egoless in the sense that many ancient traditions have done means to do practices that are not convenient in this time. But what is convenient and has no bother in a sense is the ability to see and be aware of your thoughts being recreated instantaneously all the time. What that means is that, you see, there's a lot of names for God in India. And it's fascinating because there was an interest to see God within all things. And so that is knowledge, guys. When I say knowledge, the word God pushes some people off. You say the word God, some people are like, yes, could there be anything else? You know, anything else? And then some people, you say the word God in front of them, they're like, could there be nothing else? You know? And so the mind of man is playful because it is always playing with the human idea. And for transcendence, you do not want to be engaged with your human idea too long. And what that means is, I'm not talking to you like some person, random person, you know, on the street. I'm talking to you like someone who wants to surpass and transcend their peak of awareness to its next illumination. Once you have seen the light. Where do you want to look at? Where do you want to be? Every human being at this point, guys, has a sense of knowing, which is a harmonious state of being, which can be found self-reflectively through looking at what love is for you. And once that is done, the ability to intensify one's experience becomes one of tremendous gain. You know, guys, find your own methodologies. Feel free to play around and you know, revolutionize your environment. I realize if I am constantly at a state of being where I am increasing, simply I walk in a room and I see that there is more bliss immersed, I see that that is a good state. But at times, there's confusion as well. And so, we can verbalize confusion, but at the same time, if we do it too much, we are playing with clay. We're not feeling the real thing. We're putting ourselves in boxes and thinking we can only survive by, fighting as harsh as, they do in kickboxing or something. And not that I'm not a fan of kicking boxes open, but you choose what message you want to say. So your whole life is not about this, guys. I want you to think that there is this very huge ear called existence, and there is you, which is, you are a unique combination. You are part of this grander vision of yourself. So how are you departing from parts that want to be always segmented? Because you see, guys, we are lucky enough to have the physical body decompose, but some mental bodies do not decompose at all if you're attuned to a certain wavelength. What that means is when someone perhaps fades away and dies in their own last breath, they may perhaps see that it was all about the next combination of moment, the next combination of moment, the next combination of moment, at which all moments are eventually experienced. If you feel that right now your experience is just limited to having the next moment of experience, having the next moment of experience, having the next moment of experience, that is fine. But realize that eventually, if you have considered from the beginning of your origin to be a separate unit, all that you can do is integrate. In other words, if by being alive you're temporal, you must not avoid the eternity that is found within one's deconstruction, within one's death. In other words, you trying to see eternal happiness as you construct your life. You must also perceive eternal happiness as your life deconstructs. And so, your ideas and your awareness to them and your experience of them is very important, because I could be standing here and I could have the greatest teachers around the world just come beside me and just in their own personal way just send their lesson to me. And if I'm thinking about nachos, well, it'd be a waste of reception from my part. Guys, there's never a waste of expression. There's only a sense of waste of reception because your utility is not being adjusted. In other words, you're not utilizing the treasure found within your moment. By revealing the treasure within your moment, you're in a sense and invariably telling yourself that you are your greatest experience. And let me ask you a question. Do you want your greatest experience to have shape? Do you want to know your greatest experience that you're going to have? Or do you want it to be something that is always better than the thing you have now? And this is where the psychology of man finds itself going slightly psychotic based on the rules that it's created. Rules create a psychotic being. You see? You get to know a person long enough and you will see an insane man in their eyes just as you have seen an insane man in yours. And same thing, because the more you engage with something, the more real it is becoming for you. So it doesn't matter what the truth is, it is more important in how you are applied to truth, or how you apply truth to yourself. Some people find faith in religion, but unfortunately they don't see this greater thing that religion is pointing to, because religion is based on a story. And so, how does a religious man teach his child that the book is more than a story? By personal, private relationship with life. And so, boom, the concept of prayer becomes your every thought. And so I realized not that I have not been praying, but I have been praying since the beginning of my existence, because that's how my light emanates. And that is how my nature emanates. So I understand the nature of my consciousness outside of formed construct, because I allow it. Because there are greater bodies in which our mind cannot conceive us, but we can use. Do you know what that implies? That implies that the God you sought was always you. And the you that you sought was always God. Because infinite mirrors must break. But if we are still seeing something, the reflection has not dissolved. And guys, this is simply the question, because a lot of gurus and mystics, enlightened masters, they say that after death is a moment of enlightenment. But you see, guys, if the torch is not consciously passed down to your other cellular bodies, there will be a sudden panic to jump out of your seat when you're still on the ride. So ask yourself right now, because this is a question I've asked myself, that if I lost everything, if I lost everything, who would be standing here? If I lost the love of my family, if I lost the love of my greatest idea, if I lost the love of myself, who would be there in that emptiness? And do you want me to tell you why? What's going to be there? An infinite ability to love. And so we realize that in the context of emptiness, all jokes are hollow. All words are hollow. Everything is hollow. So if a part of you is having an experience of emptiness, or in a sense of nothing observance, then you realize that man's greatest technology is to stop creating technologies limited to certain wavelengths of observance. What that means is we do not need to change science or change spirituality or change religion. We need to develop integral systems, integrated systems that are just common sense. Because, let me tell you, I see a lot of entrepreneurs and risk takers who they see, for example, a product that's in one country selling huge, and they come to another country and they see that country doesn't have it and they sell it. Now, is that man a prophet by bringing that item to those who didn't have it? Or is that man simply just one who is trying to survive like a machine, like an animal? No care for other sensory alignments of being. Just this. You know, guys, it was very interesting for me because I found it strange to ever separate the light in my eyes with everything else. So, you need to understand, if we are looking through one motion of the kaleidoscope, we better not think that this view is going to make sense when we have laughter, when we have paradox, when we have the ability to experience twice. So let me tell you what happens once you become aware. When I say aware, actually, I don't want to say it like that. I want to say, let's say, in my own experience of a certain range of self-awareness and sensitivity to consciousness, I'll call you in a bit, yeah? What time? Dude, you realize this is all good? Nothing, I'm just recording something right now. So this is all being recorded in it. Alright, man. So send me a text, okay? I appreciate it, man. Take care. to continue with from that disturbance. You see, guys, I want to push us further. I see man, and I see that man doesn't need a teacher. Man needs to allow chaos to be his teacher. And when I say chaos, I mean things that are found to be meaningful non-linearly and linearly. You see, guys, when I speak, you need to recognize I am always telling you, you must have compassion in any act. You must see the compassion, the love that is the fabric of your moment. You need to feel that texture. Feel the texture of your certainty of what is your concept of love. And realize, because, guys, if the problem with objects is that they could make you lose meaning in who you are. And this is very important. This is a psychology which I don't think a lot of people have perceived, but it's about objects. What that means is that when me and you see an object that is not talking, guess what? Me and you are putting the value into what it is. So we see that reality based on one's personal truth is the constant recreation of a moment of experience that is being more able and evolving. So it is right. There is, let's say, a monkey who's, dancing around into new ways of being. But at the same time, the eyes of the structured and unstructured are always looking to one another. That twist in infinity was the blending of one dimension into two qualities of itself, which gave the understanding of two dimensions. Who is free? What is freedom? And is death the last straw? When you have to go blow up a rock in the movie Armageddon? You must accumulate and cultivate the ability to listen to your being. And what I mean by that is, at first, this is going to engage you as all the thoughts you might think you have, but it's not thoughts. You're going to sit down somewhere, most preferably, in the park or on the grass, and you're going to, for a moment, release everything as if you're sitting in a jacuzzi, and just let the moment be as it is. You're not going to touch the moment. You're going to see that leaf is in a perfect spot because there's no interpretation of what perfection needs to be for a leaf, Ignorance is created when man believes to be something. That's it. If you believe you're something, there's a level of your own ignorance because that something is changing constantly. So, talking about the meaning of life as one of awareness means that we are always paying attention to what we are aware of. And once you do this, you have reached a level of mindfulness, guys. Don't be alarmed by these ancient Eastern traditions and their, profound approaches to consciousness. Your moment is your canvas. Begin drawing, begin realizing how aware of you are in the room, and be playful with your own sense of trust. What that means is, if you don't trust something in the moment, well, you can always adjust your vibration. So let me say it like this. After, let's say, certain amount of time of me meditating, I noticed that my psychology had changed, my personality had changed. And I wondered why. How can one man change his approach to other things he's constantly approaching the same way? And you know what it is? You cannot get rid of your problem if it is too complex, because then you think your answer is never complex enough. You must find the simple problem in which your moment of being is always the simple answer to. And so, whether I'm introducing a new sense of technological advancement, both internally and externally, in regards to how man is alive, or whether I'm just picking up a rock from the beach And just because those moments have infinite value, I never let myself to think that there is nothing when I am a very blissful experience of the emptiness of the ability to be everything. Guys, my words are once spoken to your ability to confront. I am one man, you're another. We are understanding what we are by living. And what is valuable is how clearly and accurately we can communicate our experiences. Because the data does not need to be filtered. I don't want based on filtered and theorized and estimated and average conceptions. I want everything. I want to look at the world that was never here. And it is not one of curiosity. It is one of remembrance. Because curiosity killed the cat, right? But remembrance brought it back to life. So curiosity at times is your limited sense of self-awareness engaged with certain ideas around you. But as your self-awareness increases, it's as if you have the awareness of the floor to everything that's in the room, you know? And then you realize after your experience cultivates, after you're constantly cultivating greater understanding for yourself. What that means is you need to define the quality of your understanding. A very nice story to share would be that which I have heard on who was Rumi, Maulana Rumi. And this is a story, let's say, from 700, 800 years ago. There was a man sitting by a fountain, a young man, and he had a book in his hand, and it was a very, very nicely covered book. It was a very nice book. And back in the day, they had these people called, who were, I guess in a sense, Sufis or dervishes, whirling dervishes, or wild men. They were pretty much spiritual wild men. And when I say wild men, they were people who were not living based on conventional rules. They went where they pleased, but they were known for their presence. In other words, you sat beside one of these people, you felt the difference, you know. So, as this young man is sitting by the fountain reading this book, this Sufi, this old dervish, sees him and walks by. This dervish, his name is Shams. And he looks at Rumi. He looks at the young man and he says, "Young man, what are you reading?" You know, as if very spontaneously. The young man looks at Shams, looks at this, you know, older guy in his 50s, you know, bearded, you know, kind of caveman-like presence type of person, and says, "Nothing that would interest you, old man. Nothing that you would understand. This is the newest book. This is the newest technology. This book I have in my hand is the newest sciences ever. Do you understand? In the whole world, in the Persian Empire or wherever it was." And so the Sufi, the dervish, looks at him and says, "Okay." He takes the book, and back in the day, books were written with ink, you know, on whatever they found to write on. And you see that the wild man, the Sufi, the dervish, takes the book and throws it in the fountain, throws it in the water. Something breaks in the young man. He simply looks at the old guy and in complete anger says, "Why have you done this? Why have you thrown the only science? Why have you thrown this book away? This was great knowledge. Why did you throw it away?" The Sufi, the spiritual wild man, in a sense like kind of a sage back then, he takes out the book from the water, completely dry, gives it to the young man, and the young man can't say a single word. It's as if time and space have stopped in his reality. And he sees that the sounds entering his ears is Shams telling him knowledge that wipes with water is no knowledge at all. What that means is our trust and our truth is best revealed to us through our eternal moments, our moments of eternity. Your past, present, and future are categorized in that way from one view. But from another angle, life has always smiled at itself. And so have you. Much blessings, because real knowledge, guys, has nothing to do with the relationship that one has between their image, their mind, and whatever story in between. Much blessings and namaste.